you so much, Monica. Thank you so much, Monica, and thank you so much everybody else for attending tonight's Toastmasters event. My name is Brandon Burbank, and I'm really, really passionate about talking about the subject on mental health and personal development. So passionate enough to the point to where I decided to write a book on it. So let's get into it real quick. Focusing on the book itself, I have various chapters that I've outlined in my book that I'm going to share, relay content with you guys so that you guys can learn more about how to better come back to success when faced with a mental illness like bipolar disorder. To give you a little bit of recap and insight, as well as history, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at age 19, and so I'm currently 25, and I've learned a lot how to better understand my diagnosis, manage my diagnosis, and become more successful through the steps that I've taken thus far. So let's get into some of the chapters, starting with chapter 3, which is titled Diagnosis and Affliction. And this chapter encapsulates the concepts around how I talk about how I was in the hospitalization process, from being hospitalized in the mental health department, the psych ward essentially in the hospitals around, in the Washington state. And so basically the chapter 3, Diagnosis and Affliction, gives more insight around that, and then it goes more into depth around the ideas of learning how to, from a perspective of someone who's trying to come back to success, learning how to create steps and understanding your diagnosis, as I mentioned, and then learning how to manage and take control over your diagnosis so that you can become more successful in that way. So moving on to the next chapter is it's actually learning how to live well, and then it's titled Learning How to Live Well, Hospitalizations, Halfway Homes, and Self-Help Programs. So this is a really important concept because there's a lot of content that I included in this chapter that focuses on just learning how to live well and how to embrace your diagnosis so that you can be a more successful and happier individual. And there's a lot of things that come through with that is essential for a good understanding, which includes going through the difficulties, essentially the trials and tribulations that I had to go through for the hospitalization process, the halfway house, as well as the self-help treatment programs, mental health treatment programs that were out of state in Atlanta, Georgia. And then moving on towards the next chapter, focusing on the writing on the walls, which is a perspective on, I know I'm talking quickly, but because I'm limited in time, that's why I'm trying to make sure that all the bases get touched before the end of this presentation. So with that being said, chapter 5, the writing on the walls, let's start with Zach Garner, who talks about how he really focuses on how to destigmatize our communities and mental health communities. It's best to educate people and provide training, as well as also government assistance for government training for things to be changed in a positive direction, so that more people can get under better educated and better awareness and empathetic open-mindedness towards people with a mental illness like myself. Another person that's really important to bring up is Dr. Greg Jantz, who is a founder and CEO of the Center of Place of Hope in Edmonds, Washington. And his credentials include a PhD in psychology. I think it's psychology. Yeah. He has a PhD. I know that for a fact, but the other details are a little bit not off the top of my head. But with that being said, he gives a quote in my book that references depression and anxiety is a huge problem, and that depression is a worldwide problem, especially due to the pandemic and everything. And that's derived from the World Health Organization. And then moving on to fundamental plan for living a happy and healthy lifestyle. That's basically the chapter 7 gives more of an outline that gives a care plan essentially. And I started learning how to use a care plan when I was in my self-help mental health treatment program in Atlanta, Georgia, where I was learning how to become more in tune with myself and my goals and also my body, so I can become more adaptive towards the things that come my way in life, and how to better manage things when I'm feeling this way or I'm feeling that way, and how to react towards the circumstances that life throws at my way. And then moving on to the next chapter, I know this is really a condensed format because it's limited, but I'm going to continue on. Passion pathfinding, which is retail to motivational speaking. And the retail to motivational speaking portion really encapsulates the ideas around focusing on from Bellingham, Washington to Seattle, Washington to LA and Long Beach, and being successful in that way, and trying to have a dream and try and pursue that dream and follow that dream until relentlessly you can achieve and accomplish that goal. And that's something that really has that chapter is one of my favorite chapters in the book, because it kind of shows my story of moving from different places, different jobs, and all the job training that I went through to learn how to become more successful and come back to success. Moving on to the last chapter, which is chapter 9, success over stigma. And this chapter kind of focuses on success in itself, as it's called, success over stigma. And I try to focus more on the success portion of things and the positive things in life, rather than the negative parts about being bipolar and trying to learn how to manage that. Because yes, it's important to manage that. Everyone has their own decisions and choices on how they choose to manage that. However, your mindset is the best way that you can choose to overcome your diagnosis, so that you can come back to success and become more financially free, happier, and just better, well-rounded individual. So more into depth around that, though, quickly. The success over stigma aspect of it really focuses on the ideas around one quote by Will Smith, famous actor, and he says, to build a wall, you have to place one brick and lay it perfectly as possible, another brick perfectly as possible, another brick, until eventually you have your wall. And that's just a huge quote that I put into the book, because it's really, it gives me a sense of a reminder that when things aren't going my way, and when it feels like I've lost direction for my purpose, for my goals, for my business, it's like I can look at that idea and remember, okay, one thing after the next, moving on, moving forward, and eventually I'll find success. And wrapping things up, God has definitely been a huge impact in my life, and I'm very blessed to have God by my side, and my faith is something that's really helped guide me through my trials and tribulations. And I know for a fact that He can help you too, if you choose to believe that and choose to accept where you're at in life. And lastly, go get it. Believe in yourself. Go get it. Go do it. Thank you.